Welcome to 9 Bob Note with Paul Isles-Rush and Ken Moss.
Hello and welcome.
Hello, emphysema clinic.
That was a good start to the year. Hello and welcome to 9 Bob Note. I am Paul.
And I am Ken.
We are both very much alive.
Yes. I just had a bit of a coughing fit as we pressed record for some reason. Paul, we have now got the new year underway. What are we doing this time?
We are going to have a look at our 3 wishes for the coming year.
How are you making the world a better place?
Well, my first wish...
like Mr. Murray there.
Yeah. My first wish for the year is now a traditional one and also something that's completely out of my control, which is that Doctor Who is going to be good.
Oh, Christ.
Some
heavy lifting going on here.
We have, of course, spoken at length about it. And we've spoken about when it came back last year and it was all shiny and new and everything changed. We had the new Doctor played by Ncuti Gatwa and the new companion and the new TARDIS and everything was new. And we were all very excited because Russell T Davies was back on board and I really enjoyed it. But there was something missing. And I think one of the things is that it was very much, I'm going to do something new. And if you don't like it, then you're the one with a problem, which was very much aimed at the people who've been watching it for 60 years.
Yeah, that's not an uncommon attitude now. I know that some of the new Star Wars series, the fans have really not liked because they've ticked all the diversity boxes, but it doesn't feel like Star Wars anymore. And I mean, there's a lot to be said for all this new diversity and inclusion. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's going way too far when it's very clearly crowbarred in to the detriment of whatever they've made. I mean, Star Wars is filmed with aliens, so it's quite diverse. I think there's scope there for a bit of diverse casting. But the propensity for producers to turn around and say, well, the fans that don't like it, they're just clearly bigots. That's not going nowhere, is it? It's a very peculiar attitude that if you don't like something we've made, well, you're clearly the problem then.
Yeah, well, just don't watch it. Well, then if nobody watched it, then you've kind of got a problem. But one example is with the new Doctor. He's probably the most human iteration of the Doctor that there has been, which does take away from the fact that he's supposed to be an alien. And I think we've discussed that it's very much at the moment like a spin-off of Doctor Who where 2 humans have stolen the TARDIS and go on adventures, which would work really well, great, but the alienness has been taken away to the point where he's just a 20-something-year-old man. So one of the things is a lot of people have commented that he cries all the time. And he cries all the time. But rather than say, fair enough, yeah, it did get a bit over the top, and when I'm writing this new series, I'll bear that in mind. What he said is, well, tough, this Doctor cries, there's going to be a whole lot more crying in the next series. And if you don't like it, then that's your problem. He cries. And there's so many sort of little things like that. And it's perfectly fine to have the Doctor as a human, or, you know, as more human, but he still needs to have that Time Lordiness and solve problems by just being super clever and cleverer than everyone else in the room. And that seems to have gone. I really hope that comes back, although I am guessing that we're going to have to wait until he regenerates before we get something, which is a shame because there was a lot of potential. But also, just things like the teasing of all the mysteries, and there's going to be these big twists, and like Susan twist. Yeah, we're going to talk about Susan in every episode. We're going to talk about Susan, and then there's always a twist at the end of every episode that features Susan twist Susan. And then you get to the end, and on the whole thing with Ruby and how there's something really special about her. Oh, yes, there's got a big mystery. And then the thing that was special about her was that there was nothing. She was just an ordinary person. But that's fine because everybody's special. We want the twists. We want the big cliffhangers. We want the big reveals. The fact that both of Ruby Sunday's parents turned out to be just normal people, it just didn't work.
No, it didn't.
The fact that Susan Twist turned out to be something from the 60s which had nothing to do with Susan or anything, and was a completely reimagined version of a character, of a baddie. It was very silly, and the fact that the twist is that there isn't a twist.
Half of these, I've got to be honest, I am not at all turned on by certainly the last series. I was quite excited by David Tennant returning. Now, I've never been the biggest fan of David Tennant, but the 3 episodes he did, he was magnificent. He was better as Doctor Who second time around.
Yes.
With that weight of age behind him. I have always said, Simon Exton disagrees with me on this, but I have always said, Doctor Who, going right back to the very beginning in 1963, it's a gay programme in straight clothing. You can take away from it whatever you want. If you want to see a character as being, he is, well, it's not been said on screen. No, it's obvious that he is. Look at it. And you can look back and you can look through a lot of the stories that we've had, and you can view it through the prism of either that character's gay or that character, the same character, is not gay. And it works on so many levels. And it was either by accident or design, it's always appealed across the board without being explicitly targeted at anyone. Now it's very specifically targeted at the LGBT demographic. And whilst I can see the reasoning for it, unfortunately, you're alienating a large part of your audience who aren't queer. And if something is relentlessly queer or has an undertone or a subtext, eventually, it's like if something was relentlessly straight, if they had a character that was just a womanizer and lenched over every woman that he stepped out of the TARDIS and bumped into, that would get very wearing very quickly to the straight audience as well, I suspect. And Doctor Who's never been that programme. I don't want a Doctor that's got... I want the Doctor to be very asexual. I was never mad keen on the whole Rose subtext, and we've had the rather contrived kiss with Rogue, the first gay kiss. There's no reason why not. Why shouldn't the Doctor's a couple of thousand years old? Why shouldn't he be a little bit flexible in that department? Yeah. But I don't need to see it.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with having... I'm with you. I don't think that the Doctor should be in love with anybody. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with having sort of flirtations or gay storylines in the thing. But in this series, as you've said, it was every episode. There was almost every scene, even the ones where David Tennant came back. He said something about someone being...
Isaac Newton.
Yeah, Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton and the colourblind casting. Yeah. Oh, what you do. Oh. You'd never colourblind cast the other way around. That would be my beef. It would be seen as whitewashing. So it's not colourblind, really, is it?
No. And it was every episode, and a conversation with Ruby about one of her friends who'd broken up with her girlfriend. And it's like, well, why did you have to mention that? Just because we've had a couple of minutes without mentioning something gay, let's just leave it. But yeah, it did feel a little bit forced. And the whole thing with the Rogue episode was nobody cared. I think the only person who noticed that it was a man that he kissed was Russell T Davies, because he went around telling everyone that it was the first time it happened. But it was the fact that nobody believed that after all these thousands of years, he would just meet someone and instantly fall in love with them in 15 minutes, male or female, after everything that we've seen them go through. And that was clearly designed because they'd cast a fairly well-known gay actor, and they was like, well, we're going to have to get them to kiss because it's going to be a big thing. And everyone was like, well, yeah, it's not really a big thing, but also it doesn't make any sense. So you actually ruined what could have been quite a good episode by that.
Well, again, Simon Exton said that it would have been, and I agree with him on this, that if it had been a River Song type situation where it was layered throughout a series and there was this underlying attraction between them that was built up.
Yeah.
I think we could have got on board with that, but not, as you say, pretty guy, 15 minutes, come into my magic box, or get here. I'm just not believing that. You couldn't imagine any of the other Doctors doing that, really.
No.
Jodie Whittaker never did that. For all the flaws in that series, she was never that, I'm a woman now, hello. It just never happened. She was more doctorish than... I just don't like Ncuti Gatwa's portrayal. I mean, he's been written that way. He's clearly that kind of actor. But even he's said, if you don't like the queer, if you're going to be homophobic and transphobic about it, there's the door, mate. We don't need you. It's not the way to treat your audience.
No. I mean, I get it. If you're going to say, I'm not going to watch Doctor Who anymore because I don't like the fact that he's gay, or I don't like the fact that he kissed a man, then fair enough. That is a bit of a stupid reason. But the fact is that they pick up on that. It's like, that's not the reason why people are criticising it. It's not because of that. They're criticising it because of this, because of this, because of this, because of this. And we didn't particularly like the fact that you kissed a man. But that's way down on the list. But you're picking on that because that's... And it's like, well, we didn't see the point in them bringing back Yasmin Finney
to hold the clipboard.
For no reason other than her mum had once worked there. Well, you can't say that. That's transphobic. Well, no, it's not.
The character was
terrible,
dreadful.
bad writing. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's my first wish. The possibly ill-fated wish that Doctor Who's going to be better this year.
I live in vain hope, but I don't think it's going to be anyway. Well, my first wish, a bit of an esoteric one. That the house move goes okay. As I've said previously, I'm moving house this year. First time I've ever moved in with anybody, bought a house together. There is a seemingly endless stream of paperwork to fill in. This has been going on for about 1.5 ice ages now, and they're still finding more papers for us to fill in and charging us a handsome fee for the privilege of doing it. I don't know what they're actually doing at the conveyancing office. So it's just that it all goes smoothly once it's all completed. In terms of actually moving, everything's already pre-sorted out. We've got all the boxes to pack up in. The furniture will all be moved by my brother-in-law. We're going to do that all in one day. And the rest of it can be moved in the cars as it's only down the road. So there's a lot of stuff being left behind. It shouldn't be that painful, an actual physical move, but the paperwork, my goodness me, yes. So, that's my first wish for 2025. It's purely for myself.
Yes, and quite right. And we're very much looking forward to having you in the neighbourhood.
Yes, back to the place of my birth. So it's all come full circle.
Exactly. Lovely. My second wish for 2025 is... possibly the most British wish that I've done, is that we have some decent weather this year.
Yeah.
We were talking about it the other day, and when we went into lockdown in 2020, we had probably about 6 months of glorious weather, and it was perfect timing because we were all locked in at home, and it meant that we could just sit in the garden. People were working from home, although nobody was actually doing any work because no one was really sure how long, what was going to happen. The kids were at home, but they weren't getting any schoolwork because the teachers didn't know what to do. And it was like a really long summer holiday. Since then, we have had terrible, terrible weather. So over the past couple of years, we have had our garden done because it was not a very nice place, and now it's a really nicely done. And in the summer, we have nice plants and stuff, and it's really nice. I keep saying nice, but it's lovely to be able to sit out, have food and drink, and just enjoy being in the finished garden. But since we had it finished, we haven't been able to at all. We've had about 2 days in the past 2 years where we've been able to enjoy it, and it's just been dreadful. So some nice weather, if you please, Mother Nature.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to argue too much with that. We haven't really had a summer this year.
No.
We had a little blip. When was it? May, June, sometime like that, a couple of weeks. And it was lovely, but it was a blip. You know, we've got gardens to enjoy and money to spend, and it would be really nice to... I miss sitting out under the stars late at night, having a late drink, or a bonfire, or a fire pit. A bonfire, we've got a barbecue, or a fire pit or something. Or just wandering down to the pub and sitting outside. Yeah. There's something lovely about having a drink outside a pub in summer. It's, little things. So, man upstairs, if you could do the decent thing next year, set the controls.
Yeah, just turn it up a notch, please, if you don't mind.
My second one's a bit of an esoteric one again. To get on in work.
Right.
I've always been very lucky. I've always had lots and lots of work to do. I've never struggled finding work of any kind. I've always had my fingers in a few pies at any one time, and I've kept myself nicely afloat. But I have, in sort of the past 10, 15 years, realised that I've just been coasting, really. And it's been very good, and I've enjoyed everything that I've done. I would certainly not denigrate any of the jobs that I've had. But I did get very comfortable. And it's only in the past couple of years I've started working with the civil service, and I'm loving that too. And I've got very, very rapidly on in the past 2.5 years. I would like that to continue, because the civil service, for all its flaws, it's a good mistress. It does look after you. And there are a lot of people that swing the lead within the service. But if you really want to get on, the opportunities are there.
Yes.
So I've got a lot of catching up to do. I'll be 47 in February. And with each passing day, I get less and less appealing on my CV. So, it's just to get on and make the most of things. I would also say the same for Dawn as well, because Dawn, she's been through a bit of a turbulent time recently. Always been extremely good and extremely successful at whatever she's done. But as with lots and lots and lots of people in the country, there's always that uncertainty. And it would be nice just to have a little bit of stability this year, or more of a steer, a direction on where things are going. Because just at the minute, everything, it just feels a bit rudderless. Even though it's moving forward, it just doesn't seem to be with a clear direction. So I would like to get a grip on that this year and forge forward, because it's really satisfying getting a promotion or getting a new position. I get a big thrill on new challenges. So that's something I'd like.
Excellent. Onwards and upwards. My final wish for 2025 is, again, a fairly personal one. I'm wishing, or hoping probably, that everything's going to be okay.
Gosh.
So, as you know, there have been a few health things going on. I mean, with me, but also, as I've mentioned, my mum, Stuart's parents, various other members of my family and friends, but also there's other things going on outside of health-wise. You and Dawn with the big move, and lots of things that people are going through, and changes and uncertain times. And it sort of links back to my resolution of staying positive, that yes, I believe that everything's okay, but it's also nice to put a bit of a wish. So by the end of this year, hopefully those sort of uncertainties will be ironed out and everything will be smooth sailing again.
I will 100% drink to that. Yes, there have been a few unpleasant moments over the past 12 months on several levels, and no, it would be nice to get all those bottomed out. Well, my final wish for 2025... get immigration sorted out.
Right.
Now, this has been a long-running thing for the UK, that immigration's out of control. And regrettably, it is now out of control. And It's causing a lot of ructions because the longer this goes on and the longer as it goes unchecked and there's a lot of empty promises being made by the government, the more you get the figures like Nigel Farage and whoever the reform guy is ramping up the public. And it's not healthy. Now, there's no getting around the fact that unregulated immigration into the country, you only need to look at the Office of National Statistic figures. It's massively exponentially increased in the past 5 years. And the country can't afford it. There's a knock-on effect on so many levels. Now, my view on it is I'd like to know more detail about why these people are coming from places that they're coming all the way across Europe, literally killing themselves to get into the UK. There's a reason for that. What is that? Why are they so desperate to get here? Why are we so attractive? And you look on the government website on what is available to migrants who aren't even staying here. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that is being shelled out, even if they're going to be deported. And the problem that you've got on several levels is it's in itself, people coming to live here is not a problem. Contribute to the economy, etc., etc. But what we're finding now is that there are what they call inactive migrants who are just coming here, settling here, and taking out of the economy without putting back in. Inevitably, there are cultural differences in the communities they're settled in. And people are starting to notice. Certainly, I can speak for the Hindburn area. There's differences being felt now that are not comfortable, and there are rumblings. So this is being forced on councils up and down the country, with the exception of London and the South East, who are specifically excluded. Now, in itself, it's not a bad thing to have people moving about from country to country. It is not a bad thing. But at the moment, it is not regulated properly at all. And long term, it's going to do a lot of damage if somebody doesn't get hold of it, rather than saying, we're definitely going to do something about it this year. Get hold of the problem and sort it out. Because the mood in the country is just, it's going further and further against. And it's going to cause massive problems if somebody doesn't actually say, look, this is actually quite serious now. We need to do something about it, because people are concerned about it.
Yes, I think one of the bigger things about that is we do not want to get into a situation where Nigel Farage is ever in a situation where he can say, I told you so. Or I was right. I mean, fortunately, we're a very, very, very long way from that ever happening. But yeah, there are issues, and it has been a problem. I think people focus on the wrong issues. So let's stop the boats coming across. Great, that'll stop a couple of hundred people a week coming in. But immigration is happening from all other places. And of course, it's not the illegal immigrants who are costing the most money. It's the people who come in and, as you say, who are allowed to come in, but then don't contribute to the economy. But every time Farage gets up there and says, stop the boats kind of thing, it takes away from the wider problem. And then it gives the government the chance to say, oh, well, yeah, look, this isn't what the problem is. We are sorting it out, but then not do anything. And as you say, it's just getting pushed further and further along. And it is going to become a massive problem.
The fact that Labour have dropped it off their manifesto pledge of fixes, this is quite a serious problem. Because cumulatively, it's not like the great gobberts coming in, but within the past 12 months, a population the size of Birmingham has come and settled. Birmingham's our second largest city. That's a lot of people to absorb.
Yes.
And there's certainly a financial cost, which is my biggest concern. But there's also a cultural cost, because people, for all this great drive for multiculturalism, the simple fact is people do separate into communities and they don't integrate very well. I live in a very diverse community. It doesn't integrate at all. You get very specific areas that they just want their interests, and that's it. And it just creates ill feeling, and the ill feeling makes me feel very uncomfortable on both sides. Just this refusal to meet each other halfway, and I think it's getting worse.
Yeah. I think one of the things, it was quite interesting that you said about London and the Southeast obviously being sort of barricaded.
Yeah.
You know, but although there are still pockets of communities of different cultures in London, London itself is quite a good example of when multiculturalism can work. And people, you know, there are people, you can walk around or go into offices and things, and it might just be because people of all races and religions and colours are just moving and finding wherever they can actually afford to live. You know, so the choice is taken away. So it can work, but as you say, it doesn't. If you're coming from Romania to live in the UK, however you get here, if you had a choice between living on a street with a bunch of English, you know, white English families, or you knew someone who was Romanian, you know, Romanian heritage on the next street, then if you were coming on your own, and you didn't know very much, then you would go. But then it does create these almost ghettos.
Ghettos.
Yeah.
It's a word I've skirted around using because it's a very derogatory word, but the simple fact is that is what happens.
Yeah.
And
it's quite hard to break them up then,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. It is difficult. I agree. Something needs to be done. And as you say, the fact is that this government was elected on the basis that was one of the, was it seven? One of the seven things that they were going to sort out.
And it's been quietly dropped. And I think a lot of people feel let down who voted Labour. That's the feeling I'm getting. I was not one of them, but I don't have a particular axe to grind, but I do think that Labour are going to come unstuck on this particular issue because I think a lot of people feel lied to on many levels by what they perceive the current government to be rather than what it's actually turned out to be.
Yeah.
So yes, a bit of a serious one to finish on, but I do think that shying away from big issues where the country is concerned, you can't just bury it under the carpet. That is what government is there to deal with. It's there to deal with the issues of the day. And that is one of the big issues for a lot of people today.
Yes.
And ignoring it ain't going to make it go away.
So we started off with my wish that a TV programme would be slightly better and finished on a very deep political national issue. So
Yes, arming Watford Gap.
that's the beauty of 9 Bob Knowles. We cater to everyone. But that's it. We've set our wishes. Let's hope they all come true this year.
Yes.
And I was going to say long may it continue, but it's going to be about as long as all the other years, really.
365 days, I think. Yeah.
Thereabouts. Yes, so we'll leave you to it, to the final New Year celebrations. Finish off those turkey curries and things that are left over from Christmas, and we will be back very soon with some January goodness.
Splendid. I'll drink to that.
Huzzah!
9 Bob Note featured Paul Isles-Rush and Ken Moss. Title music was by Mark Scheiman, and the programme was produced by Maverick Productions. For more information, please visit maverickproductionsuk.blogspot.com or find us on social media.